Jess.
Good morning. Live and 3, 2, go.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Spiritual Matters Thursdays here at the Daily Huddle. I'm your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, and I am excited to talk to you today about the magic of your thinking. I have a quote for you today, darling, and it is from James Allen. I have 2 quotes, actually. We're going to do a twofer today, okay? The James Allen quote says, "You are today where your thoughts have brought you, past, and you will be tomorrow where your present thoughts take you." Followed up by our beloved Albert Einstein, who says, "The whole of science is nothing more than the refinement of your everyday thinking." So we're going to get into the magic of your thinking today. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. Welcome everyone, one and all, from east and west, north and south, known and unknown lands. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. I am excited about today's topic because I think it is the premise of all spiritual endeavor. One of the universal laws says all is mind and the universe is mental. And so we're going to get into that mental mastery with exploring the magic of your thoughts, darling. And before we do that, let's get grounded into the present moment. So I see familiar faces. I see old and new friends alike. I can't wait to get into it. Robin, how are you? And what are you thankful for?
I am exactly the way I say I am. And today I am expectant and fantastic and grateful. I have to tell you, just understanding who I am and who created me and where I belong and being there is what I'm grateful for today. And you.
Awesome. Oh, wow. I'm right up there with the Savior. I love it. Okay, well, let's see who else is here. Ooh, look, Chase is here. Chase, where are you? And who are you hugging today?
I am right here in the present perfectly. And I'm going to double hug myself today because I need some extra jet propulsion. So I'm going to go right to me.
I love it. That's exciting.
Pleasure to see you. You're looking well.
Thank you. I don't wear pink very often, but today I decided to do it. I want to know what our Daily Huddle family thinks. Put this in the chat. I want to know what it is that you think about your thinking. Are you a master of your thoughts? Do you need to discipline yourself with your thoughts? Are you an impulsive behavior and you should spend more time in your thoughts? Like, where are you with your relationship to your thinking? We have heard a lot about, especially in the last, I'm going to say 2 to 3 years, the resurgence, the reemergence of the importance of critical thinking skills, particularly as social media and the news become much more ubiquitous and much more user-generated. So sometimes you don't even know the difference between facts and untruths, data and propaganda. You don't know the difference because sometimes we need to really sharpen our critical thinking skills. And Chase says, I'm constantly calibrating my thinking. Okay, awesome. And so I want to talk about the magic of your thinking because I think sometimes what tends to happen is that we dream, we imagine, and because we infuse our dreams and our imagination with emotional force, it pushes that imagined thing or concept or whatever out into reality, and you're thinking, oh, yay, my thinking did it so. Well, I'm going to challenge that. A mentor of mine used to say, thinking is the activity of moving ideas in the mental realm. Moving ideas. So you're kind of like exploring it, you're kind of like shifting angles and seeing what does it look like from here, what does it look like from there, which is why I'm bringing up the idea of critical thinking. Because when you have an experience of moving an idea in your mind, looking at it, examining it, observing it, etc., it's almost like the pause that you need before you get emotionally invested in something. And somebody says, inaction of placing thoughts in proper place of alignment with God's wisdom. Okay, all right, awesome. So I want to have a discussion with you about what does it look like to be an effective thinker, be an abundant thinker, and have your thought world produce the results that you desire, that you intend, that you're committed to, et cetera, and what gets in the way. So let's talk about it. I think one of the things, one of the things that gets in the way of creating as we desire is that the realm of thought, we see it as a sandbox, we see it as a playground, we see it as a rehearsal. And sometimes we'll have thoughts about something, and because we don't say it or because we don't act on it, we think it's just out there in rehearsal land, right? It's like it doesn't count because it's private, because it's secret, because it's been unvocalized, and so therefore it doesn't count. But alas, if we think of thinking as the place of creation, then we would probably be a little bit more disciplined about what we give mental energy to. Have you ever had this experience? I want to know, put a 1 in the chat if you've ever had this experience where you rehearse in your mind a conversation that you've had in the past, and you're like, I should have said this, I should have said that, this is how I would have handled it differently. And you do all these, almost like Monday night quarterbacking in your own mind, right? Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever done that. Or on the other side of it, if you've used your thinking faculty to predict or rehearse future conversations that you're going to have later on. So you're anticipating a meeting, for example, and you're thinking through the scenarios and what is she going to say and what am I going to do and what is this going to happen. So we use the thinking faculty in the present moment to either revise the past or predict the future. And in many ways, we are not available for the present moment because we are neither here nor there. So I want to talk about the magic of thinking as it relates to creation, not rehearsing reality, but creating reality. And so when have you, in your experience, had a situation or a circumstance that were it not for the power of your thinking, I'm not saying that it's exclusively that or only that, but that that if it were not for the power of your thinking, it would have turned out maybe negatively or maybe an undesirable outcome or whatever. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. In my 20s, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer and given about a year to live. And some of you have heard this story before. And I did not tell anybody what I was going through because I knew instinctively that if I told my parents, if I told my friends, etc., I was going to have to manage their energy as well as my own, like my fears and my doubts, etc. I was like, my fears and doubts are heavy enough on their own. I don't need my mother's freaking out or my father asking questions, etc., etc. I have limited bandwidth. I instinctively knew that. But I did set up a time to talk with my pastor at the time. She has since passed away, God rest her soul. And I knew that she was a busy woman. I knew that she didn't have a lot of time, but I wanted to get in there just to get a piece of wisdom. And when she came into her office, I was sitting down, her secretary sat me down, and I was waiting for her to come in. When she came into her office, I could tell that she's in between meetings. She took off a stole, she put on her coat or whatever, and was starting to sit down. And she said, "Which conversation are we having?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, are we having the conversation that you're getting ready to die and you want to put your affairs in order? Or are we having the conversation of you are committed to living?" I'll tell you why that makes a difference. If you're having the conversation of I'm getting ready to live, then the fear about, oh my God, what's going to happen with my daughter if I'm gone and putting my affairs in order is completely irrelevant. And if you're getting ready to die, the conversation about alternative therapies and healing and chemo and radiotherapy and also irrelevant. So pick a lane, basically what she told me. I'm paraphrasing, right? She wasn't that uncouth, but she basically said, pick a lane. And here's where the mind blown moment was for me. Up until that moment, I hadn't even considered that I was at choice in the matter. I was feeling like I was this split car, and half of the car was driving in this lane and half of the car was driving in that lane, and I needed some clarity. And just her question gave me the clarity that I needed so that I could channel my energy, my attention towards one lane of thought, one lane of thinking. I was thinking, as you can see, because I'm still here 20 plus years later, we know which one I chose, right? And so it is important for us to understand that all you are ever doing is managing your orientation. There are plenty of thoughts in the ethers. Whichever one is the most dominant is the one that you give your attention to. Robin makes a quote saying, simple it's not, I'm afraid you will find, for a mind maker upper to make up his mind. From Dr. Seuss, all the places you'll go. Cece says that she's exercising, staying present in today and not thinking or ruminating on the past or having mental conversations about the future. So again, one of the things that I'm going to reiterate is because the present activity of thinking is a creation activity. It's not private, it's not secret, it's not inconsequential. Just because it's in your thought department doesn't mean that it doesn't have any ramifications in your real day-to-day life. Because it is a creation activity, one of the things that you're doing when you're thinking about the past is regurgitating your interpretation of it. This is why siblings could grow up in the same house with the same parents and you'll have the same activity or circumstance, vacation, or this Christmas party or that thing or whatever, and they all would have a different remembering of it because they interpreted it differently. They thought about it differently. They processed it differently. Something that my mom did to me and my sister, for me, it was a cause for liberation. For my sister, it was consternation and disappointment, only because of the difference in how we thought about it. And so I want to inculcate in today's session that thinking is an activity of creation. It's not private, it is not secret, it is not a dress rehearsal for reality. It is actually an introduction to reality. And thus, if we understood that, we would be far more deliberate with what we think about and what we would give our mental energy to. So I want to open it up and have some discussions and play with you about where you've been with your thinking. Have you been a little undisciplined with it? You've just let your thoughts run amok because you're thinking it's a playground? Or have you been more deliberate because you understand that it is a creation Let's talk about it. Where are we with it?
I think part of the problem is that we don't realize what we're creating because we're just running amok, right? And even in the running amok, we're creating, like I said with the quote there, it's so difficult. I'm reading a quote on Psychology Today that 91% of the things that we worry about never come true.
Never happened.
And out of the 9% left, most of those come better than we thought they would, right? And only a third of those actually turned out bad. So it's only a third of 9% that turn out bad. And yet we absolutely buy into the fact that it's always going to be it's always going to be bad. It's always going to be bad. Now, I'm the other side. It's always going to be right. And that's why I get called a dreamer. And, I'm out of there and I don't have my feet in reality. And I'm like, who's reality?
Right.
So if I say it's going to be good, and if I believe it's going to be good, then all that time of worrying and stress and fear and anxiety is gone. And if it does turn out bad, then I didn't have to deal with it for however long it was in my thoughts as a negative, right? I choose to take it as a positive thing. And if I'm wrong, well, then I'm wrong when I get there. But 91% of the time, it doesn't happen anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Robin. That's awesome. And it's also an amazing reminder that what you think about, you bring about, right? You've heard that phrase before. I have long had an affirmation and a mantra, or I'm gonna say a declaration of the way that I move in my life. And my husband sometimes teases me about it until he sees the result, honey. And then he's like, "Ooh, what's the formula?" And I say, everything always works out for me. And I always have what I need way before I need it. Everything always works out for me. And I always have what I need way before I need it. And he has seen it happen. He has seen me lose a wallet and it drop in, those like in the sidewalk where it's like the water goes down there. It was like it was ensconced right there. Somebody could have picked it up. They could have just taken my stuff. They could have taken the money that was in there or the cards that were in there, whatever. We got to the airport, leaving the hotel before we realized I didn't have my wallet because I needed to get my wallet to get my ID. I didn't have an ID because I didn't have my wallet. Come to find out, somebody picked it up at that hotel, found me on Facebook, DM'd me on Facebook, and got the information to ship it to me. Thank goodness I had a corporate account with UPS so that they could mail it to me. I just sent them the little, sticky label that they had to print on the package. But my husband was like, "You didn't have to cancel cards?" I was like, "No." "Nobody took your money?" "No." "Why would they take my money? I don't steal. Therefore, I don't get stolen from." "What do you mean?" Like it was almost like he had a perception in his mind of how the world works, but here you have contrary evidence and you don't know how to reconcile it. You were going to say something, Robin?
Yeah, the thing that really comes to mind for me here is the end of the movie, the first Ghostbusters movie, where it was like, don't get a bad thought, don't get a bad thought, don't think about anything, she's going to make it. If you make it, if you think about it, it's going to happen. And what happened? The giant Stay Puft Marshmallow guy, because Bill Murray thought about he says, "I thought about the safest thing I could think about." And now this, 50-story tall giant Stay Puft Marshmallow guy shows up. So yes, it manifests what you think. And you're absolutely right. This famous woman that I know from years ago says one time, check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? Where's your stinking thinking taking you? So stop it and start thinking about the positive, the conclusion to this situation, right? And stop beating yourself up.
Yeah. Good stuff. Somebody said to me, "Are emotions part of thoughts? I think my thoughts go crazy depending on my mood." That's a great question, because we tend to think of them as like separate things, like here's thoughts and here's emotions. And it's kind of like the yin yang symbol, right? You've seen the yin yang symbol where it's like there's a piece of it that's white and it has a black dot in it. And there's a piece of it that's black and it has a white dot in it. And so inside of a mental construct is a seed of an emotion. And inside of the emotional construct is a seed of a thought. And they feed into one another. And so this idea of like, it's almost like chicken or the egg, right? Which one came first? And it depends on it's almost like whether you're a right-handed or left-handed person. Sometimes people think their way into a feeling, and some people feel their way into a thought. And so depending on whether you are primarily an emotional person or primarily a thinking person, whichever one triggers you then the other one will follow suit. So if you're a primarily emotional person, yes, your mood will affect your thoughts. If you're primarily a mental or a thinking person, then your thoughts will affect your emotions. And so it's not like an either or. Both situations happen depending on which one you are most dominant in. Some people are emotionally dominant, some people are thought dominant. That's a great, great question. Who else has something to share? And how's my audio, by the way? Robin, before we went live, Robin was making fun of the fact that I have a phallic symbol right here in front of my face. He was like, wait.
I said you have a beautiful professional microphone. That's that thought. You just created that thought, girl. That was not me. I didn't say that, people.
I wanted to tease you a little bit. So who has something to share?
Oh, the thought you just put in my head. Oh, I'm muting my mic now.
Yes, Cece, let's go.
Good morning. I love this topic, and thank you so much for this topic this morning. Actually, I use a lot of exercising of shifting my thoughts. Some that aren't important, I shift out, like doing 6-speed. And then the thoughts that need to be, that are important, I think of those things like the Bible, the word. I think of things that are lovely, true, and honest. I think of things that are good, that are positive, because the negative thoughts are not going to get me anywhere. So I throw them out like in the trash, like throw it out. And I'm exercising that every day. So a zillion thoughts come to my mind. Some of them I just disregard and move on to the next one. So I stay present into today and not the past, nor would I be reflecting on things that haven't even happened. I can't even have a conversation in my mind with somebody who's not able to communicate back. So I don't even waste my time having these internal conversations as to what I would say, because I don't know what I would say based on what somebody else who is not even there saying something. So today, there's somebody in the background.
Oh, okay.
So today, I'm just going to stay present in the moment, and whoever wants to have a conversation, I can deal with them right there in the present, and not trying to say what I would say in the future, because I don't know what that other person's going to say. They have their own minds.
Yeah.
So today I am exercising being present right now. So thank you so much for reminding us that rumination is not something that's healthy. Thank you.
You're so welcome. It's important to me that we understand the power at our command at all times. I think that there have been there are trains of thought that conflate humility with virtue. And I remember in many spiritual sacred scriptures, such as the Bible, which is the one that I'm most familiar with, that Jesus said, does the scripture not say, know ye not that ye are gods, and that I am made in the image and likeness of my creator? And so whatever can't be said of God can't be said of me, in that sense, from the divinity aspect of it. And A Course in Miracles says, nothing unworthy of God is worthy of you. And so there's a dance that we have to be conscious of. Sometimes that false humility is actually arrogance in disguise, because what you're saying is my low opinion of myself supersedes the high opinion that my divine creator has of me. And it sounds like humility, but it's actually arrogance. Like, nah, thanks God for your input, but I think I know what I'm talking about. So I just find it really funny. That's why I giggle at it. Let me see who else has something. Ron, you got something?
Yeah, this is a very interesting conversation. I mean, the spiritual Thursdays get some, basically throw me in a very special space.
Mm.
What I'm getting out of this conversation is, creation is totally a matter of integrity.
Mm.
And I go to integrity in that same space where we'll look at, you could take it about a couple of ways, but it's really what you're going to produce after the thinking process go through. I mean, for me, as an artist, I go with a long time sometimes with not creating anything. And not that I'm sketching, not that I'm really doing anything particularly, but I'm watching, I'm seeing. And in seeing, in observing, not so much seeing, but in observing, that's where my thinking goes in and really push me into creation where I may be inclined to do something, but the self is almost like if I'm not in tune with my self-integrity, into where am I taking this thought, I might as well not starting it, not starting an artwork. So I'm just trying to really relate to what you were saying with what I do. So I might even, not starting an artwork and just like, hey, you know what, this is going to take you into a rabbit hole that you don't want to go. And then, I'm shifting those thoughts until I get, and sometimes, it's for the best. It's for the best. So all I'm saying is, it's, to me, thinking and creation fall in the integrity of what's your driven messages or what your driven integrity. I mean, integrity is what your driven passion is. So,
Sure.
so I don't know. I'm kind of really creating a bunch of words, but that's where my mind is going.
Well, I think part of what I hear you saying in terms of being in integrity, and this goes into what Lisette was mentioning in the chat, in terms of emotions, is that thoughts create when they're attached to emotional gravity. When it's just a passing thing, it's a good fail switch mechanism, right? Because if everything we thought manifested, Lord have mercy, we would be in a world of hurt, right? Some people will be crashing, some people will be dying, some people will be losing their house just because you know what I mean? It's like, I can't even begin to tell you what the things I think about when somebody cuts me off in traffic. I don't say anything, right? But there's a fail switch that happens there where your thoughts are a sandbox of creation when they are attached to an emotion, when they're attached to a feeling, when they're attached to, your commitment to a particular outcome. And so that is why that repetition, just like it happened when we were children. When we were children, somebody said something to you about who you were and what your worth was over and over and over again until you believed, and it became a calcified thought. That's what a belief is. It's a calcified thought. But somebody could tell you something about you that you don't have any emotional attachment to. And it doesn't matter how many times they say it, it rolls off your back. You can call me a blue frog till you're blue in the face. It's not going to do me anything, right? But if somebody says, oh, you're a bad mother or whatever, something that I deeply value, that I'm deeply attached to, I'll be like, who you think you're talking to? And now it's a problem. Now we're going to have to fight. All right.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say?
And I think there's a factor of time, attached to it, and it's also a factor of practice. So the thought or just what somebody say to you if you have enough time to really, and I guess it goes back to, check before you react. But if you have enough time to really classify that person thought,
Yeah.
you do have a time to say, okay, where's that person coming from?
Right.
If you have that time, it is a complete different outcome.
Yes.
That you do have power on the creation of what comes out of there. So
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's
Exactly
great.
right.
That's a great practice.
Yeah. And when you insert that pause between a stimulus, what somebody says, and how you feel about it, or how what you think about it, when you insert a pause in there, you can still remain in your vortex of creation. Because even if they mean something harmful or something adversarial or something combative, in your pause, you can diffuse that.
Yep.
Without the pause, you actually tend to amplify it. And now you're just being reactive instead of creative.
Correct.
Oh, good juicy stuff. Thank you, Rob, for being here with us. Thank you, Robin, for your contributions as well. It's good to see you, my friend. Some of you are new here and you didn't know that Robin was actually the original host of Spiritual Matters Thursday. And then we became co-hosts and then he went on to greener pastures. So it's always good to see you, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Remember, of course, some of our tenets that I always jumble up just to make sure that you're listening, because I don't always give them to you in the same order. Number 1, live, love, and laugh. Love and laugh. Those are 2 right there. Stress less, eat more plant-based food. Make sure that you sleep at least 7 hours. Move your body. Give of yourself, your time, your energy, your attention. And of course, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Always audit your assumptions. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Awesome word. Awesome word.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks, everybody.
Great session. Thank you.